There is something about Keanu Reeves that is almost impossible to put into words. He is not the loudest voice in any room. He is not the person who demands attention or fights for the spotlight. And yet somehow, he is always the one you remember. Not because of what he says, but because of what he carries quietly inside him. In a world that often rewards arrogance and selfishness, Keanu has spent his entire life proving that kindness is not a weakness. It is a superpower. And that is exactly why his story inspires me deeply, and why I believe it will inspire you too. What you are about to hear is a story about a single moment, a single night, and a few words that changed the way an entire room full of powerful people understood what it truly means to be human. The air inside the old theater felt different that evening. It was not something anyone could explain with logic, but everyone who walked through the tall wooden doors felt it somewhere deep in their chest. The candlelight along the walls moved slowly, bending with a breath that did not seem to come from anywhere in particular. There was a softness in the room, like the whole building was holding something fragile and did not want to let it break. Charlize Theron stood near the entrance for a moment longer than she needed to. She did not know why her feet had stopped, only that something in the atmosphere had touched a place inside her that she had kept locked for a very long time. The warmth of the room, the low golden glow, the distant murmur of voices blending together like a quiet song. All of it made her feel as though she had stepped out of her ordinary life and into someone else's memory. She had almost not come tonight. For weeks she had told herself she was too tired, too drained, too hollowed out from a film that had asked her to pour every last drop of emotion into a character who carried unimaginable pain. The role had changed her. It had cracked something open inside her that she could not seem to close. She felt raw in a way that frightened her, like her skin had been peeled back and every small breeze in the world could reach her bones. Her friend and producing partner Elena had called her 3 times, each call more insistent than the last. On the third call, Elena had said something that Charlize could not shake. She had said, "Some rooms only open once, and if you are not there when the door opens you will spend the rest of your life wondering what was on the other side." So Charlize had booked the flight. She had put on a simple black dress. She had walked into this theater. And now here she was, standing just inside the doorway, feeling as though the room already knew something about this night that she did not. This was the Legacy Gala. It was not like any other event in Hollywood. There were no cameras. No journalists. No red carpet. No social media posts. Just 200 of the most respected people in the entertainment industry sitting together at round tables draped in dark silk, sharing a single evening where pretending was not allowed. The invitation had carried a simple message. Speak what you have never spoken. Honor what you have never honored. Tonight the world is not watching, but history is listening. Each person in the room could be called upon at any moment to stand and say something about someone else present. Something real. Something they had never said before. Some people in the room were nervous about this. Others were quietly hoping they would be chosen. Charlize was neither. She was simply trying to breathe. She found her table and sat down. Her eyes moved across the room slowly, recognizing faces she had known for years. Directors who had shaped her career. Writers whose words had lived inside her body for months at a time. Actors she had worked alongside through long and exhausting seasons of filmmaking. And then, in the far corner of the room, sitting alone at a table with nothing but a glass of water and a small worn paperback book, she saw him. Keanu Reeves. He looked exactly the way he always looked. Unhurried. Calm. Slightly distant, like a man who had made peace with something the rest of the world was still trying to name. He wore a simple dark suit. No watch. No phone on the table. Just the book and the water and his stillness. Charlize felt her breath catch for just a moment. She had not spoken to him in nearly 3 years. Not because of any argument or falling out. Life had simply carried them in different directions after they had worked together on a short film for charity. The project was small. Just 4 days of filming on a simple set. 2 strangers meeting on a train during a blackout. It was supposed to be forgettable. But it was not. Those 4 days had stayed with Charlize longer than entire features she had poured years into, and she had never fully understood why until this very moment. The evening began when the host stepped to a modest podium at the front of the room. It was Viola Davis, whose voice alone could hold an entire theater in the palm of her hand. She did not use a microphone. She did not need one. She opened the night with a single sentence. "Tonight we are not celebrities," she said. "We are witnesses." And then the stories began. One by one people were called to the podium. A legendary director stood and spoke about an actor who had saved his life during a terrible period of depression by calling him every single morning for 60 straight days, never asking what was wrong, just saying, "I am here and what are you reading today?" A young screenwriter stood with tears already falling and told the room about a famous actress who had secretly paid for her mother's medical treatment after reading her very first unproduced script, never telling a soul, never wanting recognition. A composer spoke about a producer who had sat with him in a hospital chapel for 6 hours after his son's surgery, saying nothing at all, just sitting beside him in the silence. Each story landed in the room like a stone dropped into still water. The ripples spread slowly across every face. People were not just listening. They were remembering their own unspoken stories, their own quiet debts of gratitude that they had carried in silence for too long. Charlize felt a tightness growing in her chest with every story. She kept glancing across the room at Keanu. He was listening to every single word with such deep and focused attention that it almost looked like prayer. He never shifted in his seat. He never whispered to a neighbor. He never reached for his phone. He simply listened, as though each person's words were something precious that deserved his complete and undivided presence. Watching him listen was almost as moving as the stories themselves. And then, near the end of the second hour, Viola's eyes swept across the room and stopped. "Charlize," she said. Just the name. Nothing else. The room turned. 200 faces looked at her. Charlize felt her heartbeat rise into her throat. She had not prepared anything. She had not expected to be called. Her first instinct was to shake her head, to smile politely and decline. But then she looked across the room and saw Keanu glance up from his book. Their eyes met. And in that single half a second, 3 years of silence collapsed like a wall made of paper. She stood slowly. The walk from her table to the podium felt longer than any red carpet she had ever walked. Each step seemed to peel something back. She was not Charlize Theron the actress. She was not the woman on magazine covers. She was just a person carrying something she had never said out loud, and the weight of it was almost unbearable. She reached the podium. She gripped its edges with both hands. She looked out at the room. 200 faces, some curious, some encouraging, all waiting. She opened her mouth. And nothing came out. 10 seconds passed. Then 20. The silence grew thick and heavy. Someone at a far table looked down at their hands. A few people shifted uncomfortably. But no one spoke. No one interrupted. They just waited. Because somehow everyone in that room understood that what was about to happen was worth waiting for. Charlize closed her eyes. She took one long breath. And then she began. 3 years ago, she said, her voice low and steady, I was in the worst period of my life. Not publicly. Publicly, everything looked fine. I had projects. I had recognition. I had my children who are my entire world. But inside I was drowning in a kind of loneliness that I did not even have words for. She paused, and the room leaned closer. I was working on a small project, a short film, she continued. My co-star was someone I had admired from a distance for years but had never truly known. Keanu Reeves. She did not look at him. Not yet. On the first day I showed up in full armor, she said. Professional. Controlled. Smiling when I needed to smile. Doing what I have been trained to do my whole life, which is perform the version of myself that the situation requires. Keanu showed up differently. He showed up like someone who had left all his armor at the door. Not in a careless way. Not in a showy way. In a way so quiet you could almost miss it. He was simply present. Fully and completely present. On the second day, she continued, we had a scene where our characters had to sit in total silence for 2 full minutes. No words. Just eye contact. The director wanted to capture something unspoken between them. We did the scene. And when we locked eyes, I felt something I had not felt in months, maybe years. I felt seen. Not looked at. Not observed. Not assessed. Seen. In the way that only happens when another person is truly paying attention to you. Not to respond. Not to fix you. Not to judge you. But simply to witness you as you are. I almost broke down right there on that set because I realized how long it had been since someone had looked at me. Not at my career, not at my image, not at what I could offer them, but at me. The room was so still now that you could hear the candle flames bending softly in the air. On the third night after the crew went home, she said, we sat on that set in the dark. And Keanu asked me a question I have never forgotten. He said, do you ever feel like kindness is the most radical thing left? I laughed. Not because it was funny. But because it was so simple. So almost innocent. In an industry that rewards toughness and cynicism, here was this man, a man who has walked through losses that would have broken most people, asking me with complete sincerity whether kindness might be the most revolutionary act a person can commit. I never answered him. I have thought about that question every single day for 3 years. And tonight, standing here in this room, I want to finally give him my answer. She looked across the room at Keanu. He had set down his book. His hands were folded quietly on the table. His eyes glistened, but his expression was calm, like the surface of very deep water. Keanu, she said, her voice breaking for the first time, you asked me if kindness is the most radical thing left. Yes. The answer is yes. And I know that because of you. Not because of some grand gesture. Not because of a headline or a speech. Because of the way you live. The way you sit with people. The way you look at them. The way you ask questions and then actually listen to the answers. In a world that is designed to make us forget we are human, you never forgot. In a world that rewards people for building walls, you kept every door open. And you did it not because you were naive, but because you understood something most of us spend our entire lives running from. That the bravest thing you can do in this world is to remain soft in a place that wants to make you hard. The room was trembling. Not with sound, but with feeling. People were crying. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But with that quiet, unstoppable kind of crying that happens when a truth you have been carrying alone is finally spoken aloud by someone else. Charlize steadied herself and continued. I came here tonight not knowing what I would say. But now I know I came here to say thank you. Thank you for that question on that dark set 3 years ago. Thank you for seeing me when I felt invisible. Thank you for being the kind of man who sits alone at a table in a room full of famous people, reading a worn book and drinking water, and somehow being the most powerful person here. Not because of what you do, but because of who you are. You asked me if kindness is radical. Keanu, you are the living proof that it is. She stepped back from the podium. And for a long moment no one moved. No one breathed. The room was wrapped in a silence so complete it felt sacred. Then Keanu stood. He did not clap. He did not wave. He did not speak. He simply placed his right hand over his heart and held it there. Then he bowed, gently and slightly, the kind of bow that is not about status but about honor. About saying without words, I received what you gave and I hold it sacred. Charlize pressed her hand against her own heart. And for one perfect moment across that candlelit room, they were just two human beings who had found in each other the rarest thing in the world. The quiet recognition of unperformed goodness. And then slowly, one person stood. Then another. Then another. Until every single person in that room was on their feet. Not clapping at first. Just standing. In witness. In agreement. In a shared understanding that what had just happened was not a performance. It was truth. Then the applause came. It was not the kind of applause that follows entertainment. It was the kind that follows release. The release of people who had just been reminded of something they had almost forgotten. That kindness is not weakness. That gentleness is not foolishness. That the most extraordinary thing a person can do in this world is to remain stubbornly and beautifully good. Later that evening, after the gala had ended and the candles had burned low, Charlize found Keanu standing outside the theater looking up at the night sky. You did not have to do that, he said quietly. Yes, I did, she said. 3 years too late maybe, but yes. He smiled that small private smile the world has seen so many times but never fully understood. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out the old paperback book he had been reading all night. He held it out to her. She looked at the cover. It was a simple collection of writings about courage and compassion. I have been carrying this for 6 years, he said softly. I think it belongs to you now. She took it gently. She held it against her chest. She opened the first page and found a single sentence written in pencil in his careful handwriting. It said, "Be kind. Be kind. Be kind. And when kindness costs you everything, be kind again, because that is where your truest self lives." She closed the book. She closed her eyes. And for the first time in 3 years, the loneliness was gone. This story reminds us of something we all need to hear more often. Kindness is not a small thing. It is not a soft thing. It is one of the hardest and most courageous choices a person can make every single day. Keanu Reeves has never chased fame for the sake of being seen. He has never used his struggles to demand sympathy from the world. He has simply lived with a quiet grace that speaks louder than any award or headline ever could. And Charlize Theron, by standing in front of that room and speaking the words she had carried in silence for 3 years, proved that honoring someone's goodness out loud can be just as brave as the goodness itself. The truth is, most of us are carrying a thank you we have never delivered. Most of us have someone in our lives who changed us with a single moment of genuine kindness, and we never told them. This story is a reminder that those words matter. That the people who move through this world quietly and gently and without demand for recognition are often the ones who leave the deepest mark on our hearts. So if there is someone in your life who saw you when you felt invisible, who stayed soft when the world told them to be hard, who asked you a simple question that changed the way you see everything, tell them. Do not wait for a perfect room or a perfect moment. Tell them now. Because kindness is not just the most radical thing left in this world. It is the most human thing. And the ones who practice it most faithfully deserve to know that they were seen too.